You just modeled that by asking them if they understood, or to mimic back and tell me what you just heard me say. Now, part of the conversation is now you're listening. You're listening to see if your talking actually landed where it was supposed to.
Yeah, and actually that whole thing for me begins way before the conversation starts. It's in my mind and in my mission. It's like, okay, the intention is what's going to happen here? I need to be of service to these people, this person that I'm speaking to. So the only way I can do that is by empathetically listening without my agenda getting in the way of that. Because
today, we're going to be talking about how not to talk at people, but rather talk with people. The Power to Understand. What's the name of the chapter of the book that we're talking about today?
The name of the chapter is How Not to Talk to People.
Very good.
Followed by a very, very relative chapter 3, which is listening to understand people.
That's right. So we're going to be talking about chapter 2 and chapter 3. And from the book, From Broke to Six Figures, Steps to Success in Business and in Life. So Frank, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Rob.
We're going to get started here by helping me understand what motivated you to write a chapter about the way we talk to people. It seems insignificant on the surface. Tell me why that's so important.
Well, the way that people love being talked to, you'll probably never hear that back from people, but it'll show up in how they don't take any action on what you say. And in our industry, we're great tellers, and we end up talking to people in a language that sounds like English, if that's your language, but it's full of words and jargon and information that people are just so afraid of. And they're going, I don't really understand what this person is saying to me. Why can't they just talk to me like a regular person? So that's why it really inspired me to write that chapter of how not to talk to people.
What taught you that? Is there an experience that, or a realization or a moment where you came to the conclusion that how we talk to people makes all the difference?
Quite simple. I mean, I could give you dozens of examples, but the one that comes to mind is talking over people or talking at people, as you put it before, is like, and not taking the time to really kind of make sure that what I'm saying can be easily understood. Meaning, I'm not talking down to people like at a fifth grade. I'm talking to them in a way where, and checking in with them periodically, like, okay, so what, if I could at this point, tell me what it is that you're thinking about at this point. Tell me what you're understanding, and checking in with people. And people, it's almost like, wow, this never happens. Somebody actually checks in with me to find out what I'm getting, what I'm not understanding, and what I am understanding. And I'm liking this. I like it. And what it does is it plays out in people going, I now understand what you said to me. And so I'm clear on what steps I need to take. Because I was baffled before. It's like, well, I told them everything I needed to tell them. Why aren't they taking action? They don't understand.
Which is great to transition to chapter 4, which is seeking to understand.
No, chapter 3.
That's chapter 3. Yeah. Thank you. Chapter 3. Now, you just modeled that by asking them if they understood, or to mimic back and tell me what you just heard me say. Now, part of the conversation is now you're listening. You're listening to see if your talking actually landed where it was supposed to.
Yeah, and actually that whole thing for me begins way before the conversation starts. It's in my mind and in my mission. It's like, okay, the intention is what's going to happen here? I need to be of service to these people, this person that I'm speaking to. So the only way I can do that is by empathetically listening without my agenda getting in the way of that, because that's what used to always happen. Look, I'm just really waiting for you to stop talking, Rob, so I can go on with my agenda. And I used to think, okay, well, in other words, what I had to say was more important than what you're saying to me. And when I realized that, I go, look, I need to just shut up and listen for all I can hear from what they really want and what they're really, where their pain lies. And I'll give you a little example. On telephone calls, even, people are not used to people listening to them empathetically. And more than a dozen times, people will actually go like this: Frank, are you still there? And I chuckle a little bit, just like you just did. And I go, I'm just doing my best to listen. And I can tell they're not used to people listening. They're not used to people understanding where they're coming from. They're waiting for some pitch. And I go, oh, I don't want to be that anymore. And again, we all are trained by an industry that trains that way, but happily, I don't have to be that. And I can actually be of a higher level service by just being quiet and just listening to understand people.
So before we wrap up, just give me one example of the difference it makes in one specific story or circumstance. Once you were able to learn to listen, you were able to identify and have clarity about what they're really trying to communicate, what kind of difference that can make to the person that you're talking to.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, one thing it does for the person that I'm listening to is the result happens like this. You know, we really feel that you get where we're at. We've talked to a lot of people in your industry, but for the first time, we really get that you have our backs. You're for us. We want you to help us. Please help us. That never used to happen in the old days, where it's just like, here I am convincing, cajoling, proving, just how smart I am and how, that I'm going to race in and save the day because everything you've done is wrong and everything and again, that goes back to, wow, how not to talk to people.
Right. Absolutely right. And that's why it's so valuable to be able to find somebody in the industry to be able to talk to that you can trust. And then in establishing that trust with them, because you did listen, they're allowed to be honest with you. They feel comfortable to be honest with you and give you true clarity about where they're at, so that you can create a true plan that is based around their needs and actually serves a purpose and helps them get to where they want to be. So Frank, thank you so much. The value in those 2 chapters alone definitely was such a great reminder to me today. If people would like a copy of those 2 chapters, they can click on the link below, or if they'd like the entire book, Frank, where can they go?
They can go to Amazon.com.
Okay, search From Broke to Six Figures by Frank Lehane, and you can get the entire book. It's well worth it. I read it in a single night, and I probably will reread it as often as possible, because they're all great reminders for us to be able to relate, not just with our clients, but to relate with our family members as well, right? Family, that's what we do this all for, is to protect our family. And Frank, I appreciate you protecting the families in your community.
And I appreciate
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.